Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, 6 o'clock regular city council meeting. We have everyone in attendance. We'll have a prayer or thought. Let's see. Eric, it looks like you're out. Are you good to give us a prayer or thought? Sure. Perfect. Then we'll have the pledge afterwards.
Our Father, we go to this night to discuss the needs and the functionality of the city. We ask that Thy Spirit will be here with us, that we'll make decisions that are in accordance with the people, that we will be able to be civil with one another and learn and grow together and understand the needs that our community has. At this time, we ask that Thou will send the rains upon this land, that we may be able to continue to reside here. And we may do so in harmony with Thee. And we ask these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move on. So first we'll get an approval on our consent agenda. And then our minutes from both the May 10th, 2022 meeting and then the council work session from May 18th, 2022. Option to approve those.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda and the minutes from May 10 and May 18.
Okay. That's Councilmember Grover and Councilmember Gossett, all in favor?
Aye.
That was everyone. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Is there any conflicts of interest that anyone wants to declare now? Okay. Move to our public comment portion of the meeting. This is where any of the public can address the council. Give you 3 minutes to do so. Whoever comes up, just state your name for the record and tell us what you want. Good. Okay, we'll just move on. So our first item is our business item. We have to appoint someone to fill our council vacancy. Dave, I have you on this, but we can.
Well, just prior to going into it, the city attorney was going to kind of walk through the process and actually provide some clarification on the way we've done the process in the past, which is not incorrect, but a little more clarification how they recommend going forward with the process tonight. So, Eric or Joel, I'm not sure which one of you are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, you want to go ahead?
Well, I was gonna let you take the lead there, Joel.
Sounds good. Okay. So this mainly has to do in cases where you have even split between members who are voting for appointment. So if you had like a 2-2 split, from my understanding, the council, your Blanding City has previously, at that point, they relied on sort of a lot system where you flip a coin or roll a dice at that point, which I mean that's encoded in the law, and it's definitely something that has a little bit of ambiguity into it. But the more we've looked in the law and kind of in our past experience, at that point, we found that usually the mayor would weigh in at that point if there's an even split, and only in the case where the mayor was abstaining from voting would you resort to a flipping a coin or a lot system. Does that make sense?
Even though the mayor doesn't vote typically?
Yes, so in all other cases, the mayor is, if there's a split, the mayor is the deciding vote in between. The reason why there was some confusion is the law about the vacancy doesn't cross-reference the other law, and essentially how, and Joel and Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, how they explained it to me is where it talks about the coin toss and the vacancy section of the law, it doesn't supersede or take away the mayor's tiebreaker power, essentially. That's my kind of layman's way of explaining it. But
Yeah, I think we're good to run it however we want, and we'll see where we can get, I guess.
okay. All right, is there anything else you wanted to add, or you?
No, that's it as far as the procedure is concerned.
That's helpful to know, though. Yeah, that's good to know.
So typically the process, if I understand it right, is after the interviews have been done in the meeting, the council votes on who they are choosing. If there's a tie, we can revote to see if anybody changes their mind and vote someone different out of those two. If not, then I could either vote, or we could go to the coin or.
Yeah, so you'll vote unless there's some reason you're abstaining, and then we'll go to the coin flip.
Okay, sounds good.
Now, if it's a case where you get like 2 vote for one and 2 vote for 2 others, then the law says, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that then the council as a whole picks your top 2 candidates and then go between the top 2 candidates.
Yeah, it has to be 3 votes to
Exactly.
elect someone, I guess. Okay, well, we will do the process. So we just have a list of questions that we will ask each candidate that has filed to run. And first, I just want to say thanks to everyone that did file or apply for this position. It's nice to see a list there of people that are interested. Typically, what we've done in the past is we've asked the ones that are not in the interview portion of it first to step out so that the interview questions are fair to everyone else. Is that okay to do still?
I think it's more, I think you should do that personally.
Okay, I would prefer to do that just because I feel like it gives.
I know when I was playing the first time I went first, I know it gave everybody else an advantage to go after me.
Right, and we've done it this way for the last 2 or 3 times, so we will do that if everyone is okay with that. Are we all good with that? Okay. Here are a list of the questions I printed out. And we will just go. I put these in order earlier, so we will start with Lawrence Turk, and then Jeffrey Blake, Christopher Buell, and then Trent.
So I guess what the mayor would like, those who aren't being interviewed to step outside that way, but we can shut the door there, so you can then ask questions of each candidate and we'll summon you accordingly, I guess.
Chris, Jeff, and Trent.
Lawrence, Jeff, Chris.
I'm going to call Lawrence when I'm in trouble with my mom.
I was just gonna say, Larry, do you want me to- I can bring you.
So you would call that a lot, Larry? Huh? So you would call that a lot?
Hey, well, I just,
you have an extra one of these.
that one that they have is
Okay.
extra rich. We can make a copy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll just start with number 1. Eric, do you want to start us off?
I'm sorry, Mayor, would it be easier for you to sit while?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. If you're selected, what is your agenda? I really have no agenda other than to bring my years of experience to the city of Blanding. I have extensive experience in grant writing. I have worked in every facet of the government, from city government, county government, state government, federal government, even the office of the presidency with President Trump. I wrote grants when I was superintendent of Aztec and Chaco. I wrote grants for a bridge across the Animas River as a hiking trail, which is a multi-million-dollar grant. every year I was bringing into my parks anywhere from $5 to $25 million in grants. You know, I didn't write them all, but I oversaw the Park Service. My last duty station was in New York, where I managed the home of FDR, Eleanor Roosevelt, Martin Van Buren, and Top Cottage. I have a lot of parks I've managed, but so I've got a lot of experience there. That's where I worked with President Trump. I had dinner with him and his wife on projects going on at the site for the presidential sites. My claim to fame there was where I don't care who you are, you know, I follow policy. And Hillary Clinton, it was during her campaign with President Trump, came to Eleanor Roosevelt because that's her role model. And so I, just to keep the press away, I let her come in after hours. So they commenced to open up a bottle of wine after in this historic home on Mrs. Roosevelt's couch. And boy, I went off on Hillary. I kicked her out of the park. And as they were leaving the building, the Secret Service came up and shook my hand and said, "Thank you." I guess because, you know, she's pretty full of herself. But you know, in a nutshell, without getting down into all the weeds on to everything, that's what I can bring to the city. Also, I'm water certified for water treatment and wastewater management when I managed Hogan Weep and Natural Bridges. And I'm retired. And so I'm starting to get bored. And I want to stay busy, stay active within the community, and provide a good place for my grandchildren.
City government runs slowly, and oftentimes council members don't agree. How do you respond, you know, if you're on the wrong side of the issue and you don't things are going you want? Also, just add that to how would you rate your ability to temper your emotions? Because a lot of times the emotion gets involved in this, and sometimes can be, counterproductive.
Right.
To find solutions.
First off, I would say there is no wrong side of an issue. Everybody's voice matters. So being at the level I was at with the National Park Service, it was putting out fires with personnel. My last parks I was at were, I don't even remember now, a couple hundred employees. Working with the unions. So it's you got to take the personalities out of it and what's best for the community. So, you know, I don't think there's a wrong answer because everybody's opinion matters. But as a group, that's why you have a group and you vote on things. And as we learned today, if it's a tie, the mayor makes the decision in which way we go. And if my way doesn't get picked, I'm okay with that. I'll support whatever way the group voted. And I'll stand behind that as if it was my champion.
Okay, next one. What do you think the city's role is in government, especially with the responsibility to provide for its citizens?
There's always too much government. You know, we need to let people manage themselves to the best of their ability. So I'm not into this government takeover. You know, we need to let citizens be citizens, and then they come to me if I'm fortunate enough to be selected to serve on this council. If they come to me with their concerns, I bring it to the good here, and we decide as a group on how to do it. Did I answer your question good enough? Yeah. Okay.
What are your thoughts regarding tourism for Blanding?
Oh, I got a lot of thoughts on that. I think Blanding's missing out. We definitely don't want to be a Moab. But tourism dollars are big dollars. And just simple things that we're missing out on here in Blanding is our visitor center. I know this community was adamantly against the Bears Ear National Monument. But if you go down to our visitor center, what are we advertising? Bears Ear National Monument. You have to. No, you don't have to. But it's all over. It's because you're with CMHA, which is probably the most liberal organization in this area. So, you know, they're dominating that visitor center right now. You know, it's got a window right there where you could have an outfitter come in, put bids in. The best bid gets the outfitter for Blanding, and you could be running, you know, UTV tours out of the visitor center using that outside window so they don't have to come inside, or after hours or before hours. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we need tourism dollars. Industry's going away, you know, the mill is slowly diminishing, and we need the tourism dollars to help sustain this community.
If appointed, what is your level of commitment? Would you run again after completing your
Absolutely.
term?
I would.
Where do you stand regarding growth in Blanding?
Can you go into a little more detail? What clarification? What are you
What kind
asking?
of growth are you for or against in Blanding?
I don't think this community can grow too much more just because the water. I would like to see things be more affordable in Blanding. You know, I to be honest with you, I'm fortunate to have a decent retirement. I retired for military terms equivalent as a 2-star general. So I have a fairly decent retirement, but I don't understand how we can expect or have our kids stay here and afford a $600,000 home. You know, working at Ace Hardware or working down at the building supply. You know, it seems like we're catering to doctors, you know, people that can afford that kind of stuff. So I think there needs to be a balance within Blanding if we can, you know, you can't control that, but we can't grow too much just because we don't have the water. I don't feel like I answered that question good enough, but you give me a tough one.
There's no wrong answer.
There is no wrong answer, that is correct.
You, why should the city council pick you?
You know, not knowing the other candidates' experience. But I do believe I have the majority of the experience. And I can bring that to the table. Shortly after we moved here, I came and met with the city manager. And I decided against writing, which paper was it? The Dayton, not Daily Herald, what was it? Deseret News. Because I felt like I hadn't been in Blanding long enough to put an article into Deseret News at that time.
What were you gonna write an article about?
Bears ears. You know, with Biden wanting to expand it back out to Obama, and he even talked about increasing it even over Obama's. I think President Trump did a very fair balance of Bears ears. Did I answer your question, sir? And that, well, I mean, if you want more detail, ask me for more detail. I just don't.
I think you can be as detailed as you want to respond to.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to eat up everybody's time either.
Maybe let's have any additional questions. I mean, would you ask questions? We ask them to everyone if we can.
I do. I just have one more question. So for you personally, what do you see? And for the time that you've been in Blanding and for your wife that's lived here or been here, grew up here,
Hole in the rocker.
hole in the rocker, that's right. What do you see as the number one issue facing Blanding?
Compliance. I couldn't believe this is a Blanding I grew up in, to be quite honest with you. Trash laying in people's front lawns, toilets sitting on the front porch. And I'm not talking one still in the box, one that had been used. To me, it doesn't seem like Mr. Brett, he used to be the compliance guy, I don't know if you still are, but it just seems like we've let that kind of slide. And, you know, I see boats parked along the road. And, you know, and I don't know if it's same policy during the summer as it is during the winter for vehicles being parked on the roads, but just knee-jerk would be compliance.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. Yeah, so Jeffrey Blake is what I have next. Thank you, appreciate it.
Just where I stand.
So we stand.
That works.
But
All right, we just have a list of questions. We'll just kind of take a turn and ask them and answer however you feel you want to answer.
Okay.
You want to start again, Eric?
Sure.
Okay.
What is your agenda if appointed to council? My agenda? Well, I think that probably the biggest thing is the water situation that we have, and I don't know what you can do about that other than pray a lot or use less water. And that's probably the biggest thing. I'm doing this to try and help and be part of the process. I'm retired and have a lot of time that I can devote to it.
Okay, so, as you know, government often runs slowly and you got 5 council members, different ideas and opinions, and oftentimes you may not agree with them. I guess, how would you handle or react to, you know, to something not going your way? And maybe I just add that to you, just how, a lot of times things get emotional. How would you temper those emotions and try and make decisions, rationally, logically?
Well, I think you just have to listen to all the facts, and of course, you're probably going to come in with your opinion that you think is right, but then you listen to everyone else, and if they can persuade you to
to their side than not. If not, you have to stick to your guns and stand up for what you believe in.
Thank you. What do you think the city's role is in government, especially with the responsibilities to provide for its citizens?
The city's role in government. Well, I think the biggest responsibility is to probably be physically responsible and be very judicious in where the money's spent and so that people can trust what's going on.
What are your thoughts regarding tourism for Blanding?
My honest thoughts. Well, tourism is great for the money that it brings to businesses. You have a hotel, so that's great for you. So I love tourism, but I don't want Blanding to be Moab. I think that's all I have to say about that.
If appointed, at what level is your commitment? Would you run again after completing your term?
Yes, like I said, I have time on my hands, I have plenty of time to do things and I'll run again.
Thank you.
Can we put, are this position, so this position? holds-
Well, he would,
Fill the
when
rest
you
of
fill a
the-
vacancy, you have to run the next municipal election. So, for example, Councilmember Gosser would have to run in this next municipal election, and so would this vacancy.
Is that 2024?
2024, or I'm sorry, what is the year?
2023.
2023, sorry.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Where do you stand regarding growth in Blanding?
Well, it's kind of the same thing with tourism. Blanding is growing, I think. You don't want it to be too big, but you want it to be just right. The three bear syndrome, I guess. If I wanted to live in a city, I'd be in Phoenix right now. But I don't think we ever have to worry about Blanding getting that big, but we have to be able to have the infrastructure to withstand it. And I know that we were talking about building a house last year, and from the builders that I talked to, you can't even hardly find a lot in town. You know, so I don't know if that means annexing more area to the city or what, but it's kind of a difficult situation. I'm happy with the size it is now. But growth is good too, so. I guess you just have to see what happens.
Put in the record, 3 bears.
I can do that one again.
Why should the council pick you?
Well, I grew up in Blanding. I love Blanding. I was gone for 40 something years before I finally got smart and moved back. I always thought it was strange. We'd go to Salt Lake in the summer for our vacations. And whenever we'd come home, my dad and mom would get to the top of Radio Station Hill and they were just out of their minds. It was exciting. And I'm the same way now. If I come in from the north, I get on Radio Station Hill and look down on the beautiful place. And coming from the south, I look at the Blue Mountain and the Bears Ears. And it's just a great place. I was in Albuquerque last weekend. I told my wife I'm never going back there again. I hate cities. I hate that many people, and I just love Blanding.
The last one. Yeah, one more. We added one, a question.
Oh, sorry, that's
You're
right.
good.
Apologize.
What do you see as the #1 issue facing
That's
Blanding?
one question.
Write it down, and I just want to, I'm starting in order.
So how did you ask 2 in a row?
You went last. It was my turn.
I'm totally.
Cheryl will ask you the next question.
Okay,
Ready to go.
that is the question.
The number one
But for
problem.
you, but there's more to it, that's why. So for you personally, you know, in your years that you've been here, years that you grew up here, how long you've been back, what for you is the number one issue that Blanding faces?
Well, it's like question number one. I think the water is the biggest issue here. And like I said, I don't think that you can get more water. You know, you're kind of stuck with whatever you get. So I think there needs to be some way to figure out how to reduce the water usage. And I don't know what that is, but it seems to me that, that there's got to be something done. Because in the good years, you're good to go and you can water your crops and water everything. And then other years, you're scooping and scraping.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just asking it.
Chris.
Jeff can come in.
Jeff can come back in.
Hey, you don't have all the outlet.
Or you can leave it.
Oh, yeah, that's good. You ran out the back door. Yeah,
Beat him up.
don't be nervous.
All right, we just have a list of questions. We'll just ask you the same questions we asked everyone else. And we'll let Councilmember Grover start.
If you're appointed to council, what would be your agenda?
And my first agenda would be to try to serve the community as best as I could. I guess I don't feel like it should be a personal agenda. I feel like it should be more of a group effort, team effort to really serve the spirit of Blanding.
So city government, runs slowly often, and then you got 5 different councilors making decisions, a lot of times they don't agree. So how would you handle the disagreement, or maybe if the vote doesn't go the way you want it to? How do you respond to that? Also, just that a lot of times emotion plays a role in things. How do you get to that emotion? How do you try to make decisions rational, logical?
That's a big question. There's a lot of different aspects to that. I think I encounter a lot of that just in the day-to-day operations down at Garden Flight. I'm sure Cheryl's very familiar with how that operates, and now the company's gotten bigger and bigger, it operates very slowly. Oftentimes, there's a lot of people that don't agree when there's big matters at stake. It seems like communication is one of the biggest things that helps get through those. So I think just good, open, transparent discussions, communications, good research can usually help to resolve that. As far as the emotional side goes, that can play a huge part in people's decisions. And you know, for me, one of the things that helps me to not try to just make an emotional decision, but one of logic and rationale is just you know, first just stop. Just pause. And I think that helps to kind of recenter your brain and keep that animal part of your brain out so you can respond intelligently and not as emotional.
Thank you. What do you think the city's role is in government, especially with the responsibilities to provide for its citizens?
City's role in government. So I think, you know, I'm pretty new to government in general. You know, I never attended a city council meeting until the airport stuff came up. I wish I would have gotten involved sooner, because and it's been really interesting. Just these last few meetings have been a big learning experience. It seems like the city's job, the council's job would be to try to better organize the structure of the city. Not necessarily just control everything, but just organize it so that it operates smoothly, and so that the ship, I mean, you guys are kind of the ship that directs where the city's going, right? So you need somebody at the helm that's gonna steer in the right direction. So for me, that seems like the biggest goal and intent of what you do.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts regarding tourism for Blanding?
That's a good question. I'm sure that's a hot topic. No, I think there's a valid place for tourism. It's, from what I can see, it's not going away. Just this year, just from what I've observed, just people on the roads here in Blanding, it seems like it's on the increase. Personally, I don't want to see Blanding turn into Moab. I love the small town feel of Blanding. My personal goal would be to try to keep as much of that small town feel as possible. But there is a place for tourism. I don't think you can completely block that out. But I think if you're smart about it, you can, take advantage of that and use that, help the city to grow and bring in some of those finances from the tourism. But just do it in a smart way so it doesn't get out of control. Like I feel Moab's kind of out of control at times. So, but I guess that'd be my stance on it. Try to keep it small, but take advantage of what you can.
If appointed, at what level is your commitment? Would you run again after completing your term?
Yes, that's a hard question to answer before completing a term.
That's honest.
I've heard, honestly, I've heard a lot of different things. People I've talked to that after I told them I was throwing my name in the hat, that I must be a glutton for punishment. And, several people said that it's a really rough job. So I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than I would imagine. I'm sure you're faced a lot with dealing with people that are upset, probably more so than you are with people that are happy. And, I think it's probably a very difficult position. So maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but it's kind of what I do every day, is dealing with really difficult things. So I would like to say at this point, I think, if I had the opportunity, I think I'd like to run again after a 2-year position.
Thank you.
Back to you. Where do you stand regarding the growth in Blanding?
So this I think kind of ties back into what we talked about with the tourism. I love the small town feel of Blanding. I think that's why a lot of people in Blanding are here, is because they like the small town feel. I've talked to a huge number of people that, I grew up here, they went away to the big cities, and you see a lot of them that come back, and that seems like that's their number one reason. They love the small town feel. I think it's important, however, for the city to not stagnate. The city has to be thinking about growth. Growth's probably going to be inevitable if you don't want it to stagnate back. We want to, I think, see the city go in the right direction, but we want to be smart about it. So my feel is, growth can be a really good thing, but it needs to be directed in the right way. It needs to be under control and with certain guidelines. With people directing that growth so it doesn't get out of control.
So why should the council pick you?
Now they've got, from what I can tell, three other very qualified candidates. Couldn't say for sure that I'll do a better job than any of them. I think they all seem like very good candidates. What I can say is that historically I've tried to do the best job that I can and whatever job I do. So I definitely won't tell you that I'm better than any of the other candidates, but I can tell you I will put my full effort into it. Just like I'm trying to do it with everything else in my life.
You didn't ask yet. I just have one more question that I added, but everyone gets asked the same question So for you, for your time that you've spent here in Blanding and now creating a life here and even involving your family's lived here for a long time, just what do you see as the number one issue facing Blanding?
Number one issue is the dips in the street and all that. That's not your fault, Terry.
That was a low blow.
Those are good tips. That's a tough question. You know, there's a lot of pretty hot topics right now. I think, you know, tourism obviously is a big one. Growth, I think, is one of the biggest things on everybody's mind. You know, just talking to people in the community, I think, you know, you guys touched on that with several other questions. I think uncontrolled growth could potentially be the city's biggest problem. Keep that under control is going to be critical to the success of the city.
Thank you.
That's all of them. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Oh, there's some laughing. Keeping it light.
All right. We'll just ask the same questions that we've asked everyone else, and we'll start with Councilmember River.
What would you say your agenda is if you get selected from council?
I think my biggest agenda is to find opportunity for the community, mostly in forms of possible grants. David here, a few possible opportunities, just something that I really do. I have newsletter subscriptions to a lot of federal, state grants, et cetera, that I kind of look through there at the hospital. And when it comes to small business and possible low-income housing, things like that, you know, there are grant opportunities out there that could be taken advantage of both by the city or just passed on to community members that they might, you know, at least have an avenue of access to other opportunities that they may not ever know exist out there.
So city government often runs slowly, and we've got 5 council members making decisions. A lot of times they don't agree. So just kind of how would you respond if you come up on the wrong side of vote or whatever? And also, solution that how, you know, what type of motion gets put into play there? How would you temper your emotions? How would you, you know, make those decisions that you can actually about something like motions too?
First and foremost, you know, there's such thing as healthy and unhealthy conflict, but healthy conflict is really where good resolution comes in. I think we've all found ourselves on the wrong side of votes, you know, and things that we really want or want to do. But understanding the process is number one. It's important, understanding that, you know, in politics and really anything that comes to vote, it's never a quick process. I know a lot of people, specific community members, they think they can come, make comments, and have a vote by the end of the day. And I understand that's not how it works, specifically when it comes to certain bylaws that may exist or laws that exist, such as flipping a coin, which I did bring electric coin.
We have one on 5.
But understanding how to keep the conflict healthy, keep the emotions healthy, and understanding that those emotions are what drive this community to be Blanding and why we are here in Blanding and why you all are considered as council members now, but you know, trying to find avenues to keep that conflict and emotions healthy.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you think the city's role is in government, especially with the responsibilities to provide for its citizens?
I think the number one responsibility is to guide the community in the direction that it needs to go. I may have a personal opinion about things, but when it comes down to what is best for the community, that's important to understand why. But that's why these meetings are here as well. I may only see one side of it, and to understand and debate the other side is always good. Cheryl may see things that Kellen didn't see. Kellen may see things that Eric hasn't seen, and that goes for everybody. Being able to debate that goes back to the healthy conflict, you know, healthy discussion, good discussion to understand all sides of it,
Sometimes I find myself debating myself on things just so I can understand both sides of it. Even though I already know what I want to do, it's always good to debate yourself, understand both sides, try and really get to the bottom of what it's going to look like, because we may have a clear and concise point that we want to make, but once it's made, we might see the wrong side of things, and the community may not understand exactly how or why that result happened, why the vote happened, and just understanding all sides of it and getting input from others. It's important that there's a reason there's multiple people here versus just, 2 or 3 council members, so that you can have that healthy debate.
What are your thoughts regarding tourism for Blanding?
I think tourism is healthy. Keeping tourism under control is important. But I think there's a lot of people within this community that rely on tourism, even in ways that they don't understand. Hunting guides rely on tourism. You've got hotels rely on tourism. Your mom and pop shops such as Patio rely on tourism. I think tourism comes in many forms. I think at times we become our own tourists. I know there's places I've never been in San Juan County that tourists have been multiple times and come year after year. Understanding the importance of what tourism brings in the form of tax dollars and other things that come to help the community in a small business sense, and things like that are very important.
If appointed, at what level is your commitment? Would you run again after completing this term?
100%. I've ran before. I've stood here before. Watched the coin flip once, not twice. I was one of the steers. 100%. The last time I was up here, I felt as if I was ready, but I probably wasn't. I was in school at the time. Since the last time I stood at this podium, I have graduated with a master's degree from Boise State University, as well as appreciate Logan giving me the opportunity. I currently sit as the chairman, appointed today, Logan, the San Juan County Public Health. My commitment, honestly, is to serve the community, and the public health was an opportunity that was given to me, and I've enjoyed it. I've only been there about 3 months, but my goal is to serve the community in any way that I can. Where do you stand regarding growth in Blanding? Growth has to be planned. Too fast a growth can turn into something that may have consequences that were not foreseen. But growth is healthy. I think the growth that we're seeing now is very important. We're seeing a lot of good people come back. The 2 main people that I think of the most are Caden Bainline. Caden Lyman coming back as an orthopedic surgeon for San Juan Hospital. Bainline coming back as a primary care physician for UNHS, working for Blue Mountain Hospital as well. I think that growth of bringing Blanding back to Blanding is the growth that I think we're looking at in the future. Getting our children back, having jobs for them to come back to, and understanding that growth is what drives that. I know I want my kids to come back. I don't plan on leaving Blanding. Born and raised, I love it, and I hope they get the opportunity to come back, but that can only happen with certain growth. Planning for that growth and not letting it get out of control. I don't like to relate ourselves to Moab. I think Moab, they did great things, and Moab's a great place. I think that, they could have had different controls in place when it comes to, how they do their nightly rentals, things like that. But I think it was growth that was needed, and you look at the opportunity that Moab brought. Now I think they let it get out of control in a few different ways, but it happened too quickly. And keeping it planned and keeping it under control, I think is very, very good for the future of our children.
So why should the council pick him?
I'm determined. I'm willing. I'm wanting to find opportunities for the community. I want to be a part of those opportunities. Whether you vote me in or not, I know there's some amazing people with great backgrounds. I've known Larry Turk for a long time. I think the best part about this being my second round, getting to know the people out in the hall. Didn't know much about Mr. Blake, know a little bit more about him.
We actually took my mother-in-law on a date on that out, so I'll be asking her about that.
That's a public record.
Anyway, when I choose to do something, I definitely dedicate myself, and no matter what it is. After hours, all night long, whatever it takes, I wanna be part of that change.
Sure.
So I just have one more question that I added and everyone's gonna ask, but, so for you personally, for your family, if you include your job and your time that you've lived here, what for you personally would be the number one issue facing Blanding?
I think the number one issue facing Blanding is the understanding, and again, goes back to Eric's question, understanding of why growth is important. And again, it goes back to everybody doesn't want to become Moab, and I understand that. But for my kids to come back, that's gotta happen. There's gotta be some sort of growth for them to come back. I mean, I have 4 kids and a dog. And I want them to come back. And so I think it's very important for people to understand why things need to change for the better. And why growth is a good thing and how growth is sustainable.
Thank you.
That's all the questions.
Don't stand.
So, Mayor and Council, just as a quick refresher, so, when you initially vote, if there's like 2 and 1 and 1, or all of you vote for a completely different person, then what we would do is each of you would select your top 2 candidates, then find out who the top 2 candidates are. If it's 2 and 2, mayor split. If it's 3 and 1, then that candidate is chosen. So Mayor, I guess the next question is, do you want to take a roll call vote? Do you want them to write it down? I know it's been done in different ways. Kind
I
of
got little papers so everyone can write it down. I've seen that before, but just in case someone wants to do it.
No, I want to throw out another question, if that's okay, can I?
It's up to me.
As long,
It's kind of what I was thinking question 3 should be. We talked about it before, when Len was on. Okay,
as long as everyone gets to.
everyone can stay here and answer.
Yep, I'm good with it.
We talk about the city's role in government and what things we're responsible to our citizens for. And let's see if I can read my notes. One of you said fiscal responsibility, which is good. Another said is a steering group. Another said the guide. But really, what are we responsible for? Water, sewer, power, recreation. How far should we go providing recreation? Anybody want to respond?
So the question would be specific to recreation or just?
What do you guys feel our role is? What should we provide for our
So you're
citizens?
looking for specific examples on
Yeah.
So you want Mr. Turk first?
Okay, can I ask a question? Is there, okay, Eric, as you kind of laid that out, it gives a clearer picture. Is there a budget for any type of recreation for the city or?
Budget's pretty slim.
Okay. So I think the city should be responsible for recreation, that way to keep our youth occupied.
Okay.
It's important that we give our youth things to do.
I agree 100%.
And so I think that is something that the city should be responsible for, because it's either we pay out of this hand, or we're going to be paying twice as much, putting them in, correctional facilities and things like that. So I think recreation is the city's responsibility to a degree. it's not our responsibility to make sure that everybody in Blanding has a free swimming pass. Or, you know, free UTV rides or things like that. You know, it's gotta be within reason. But I think it is the city's responsibility to provide recreation opportunities, especially for our youth.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White, same question.
I have to show you this picture first. This is a picture that my dad sent me this week. It's the city council in 1962, I think. And that's the reason I want a bullet that night, because my grandpa in there with the bullet.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that the recreation, I know it kept me out of a lot of trouble when I was a kid. It teaches you a lot of stuff, and but as far as the city paying for it, I think Blanding has an excellent recreation program already. They have basketball, and football, and baseball. But the reason I showed that picture is because all these guys, Mayor Riley Hurst, Councilman Marvin Lyman, Dave Guyman, William Palmer, Norman Nelson, Bud Hilton was the city manager. For some reason, I idolized all those guys. So I think that one of the big things that maybe the city council should be someone for the younger people to look up to. I don't know why I looked up to them, but
Because they were great guys.
yeah, they were all great guys, and so.
There's probably only 4 of us in this room that even knew.
Don't tell
All
them.
the old folks.
That's right.
Chris, same question.
So I think, one of the coolest things about Blanding is going to football games on Friday night, going to the basketball games, going down to watch little kids play soccer, play baseball, basketball. I mean, think about Blanding, what really brings this community together, it's sports. And that's a huge part of the identity of this town, I think. So I think whatever we do to help support that, foster that and grow those programs, I think that's a great thing.
Thank you. Trent.
So, repeat the question, Ivy. What is the role? I don't know if I can city.
What is the role of the city in recreation and how far should we go?
So I think the biggest key to the role of the city in recreation is making it available. I'm blessed. I am so far beyond blessed that I get to take my son to Omaha, Nebraska to play in baseball tournaments. He's been invited. Not everybody in Blanding is blessed enough to be able to do that. Didn't get a skill for me to point that out. But making it available, and the point that all these gentlemen made is, you know, it's gonna help our future of Blanding as well. I know it kept me out of trouble. Sports was one thing that, you know, I remember getting suspended for a baseball game in high school, and I cried like a baby, big time. That was what I loved the most. Part of that recreation brings people together, and I think, you know, more than just that in the terms of what happens on the 4th of July, I think that's one of the biggest things is, you know, why Blanding is so popular on the 4th of July. It's because of what the city has helped build with that, with the recreation program, all of the things that the city does, making it available to those that are less fortunate. I think that's the role of that.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion that you want to have about this before you take your vote? Or if you just need a minute to think about it too. We want you to
Please.
That's with my head.
Actually, singing would be better. I would like that.
Kim loves to sing.
Picky cut too.
Right now, it's
So, yeah, so, I mean, if there's no discussion, if no one wants to have a discussion, you can pick your, just cast your vote. So
So
right,
are we voting for two?
no,
Oh,
so this is
one.
you voting for one, and then if there's a tie, we do it again.
So just to
Depending on if
clarify,
it's a tie, so if it's a 2-2 tie, we can vote again. If there is not a 2-2 tie, then we will, each person will pick their top two. And out of those top two, the whole council will vote. So.
Just the only discussion, I don't mind making my vote openly, I'll write it down if that's what we're asked to do. But if I make these decisions, this is our third time since I've been on, this is one of, I gotta be honest, for me, this is one of the worst parts of council, and it shouldn't be that way, but it's grueling because everybody who spoke to us today are wonderful people, excellent members of the community. Any of 4 of you would do a wonderful job, and so it comes down for us to, I look at who do I think is best for this city, who has already put in time and effort to show that they want to serve this city, and it's not my own personal feelings about who I like the most or any of those things. It's what do I think is best for the city, and so to make this decision, that's how I look at this, and it is not an easy thing to sit up here and do this part. I love it when the person has to run for office because then the people get to decide, and I think that's the way it should be. But they also voted on us, and now we get to put somebody in. So I just want to also say thank you to all of you for being here and talking to us and being a part of this process and running. I think it's very, very important. So thank you.
All right, here we go. Like a game show. Okay. Which it's not a game, so it's not who?
You know what, we do it. I think that wasn't mine.
Well, I can tell you that there's not 3 votes.
Oh.
So, how this is done is that everyone gets to vote and so right. So Chris Ewald was voted by Kellen and there's 2. No one else got their So those 2, and then Trent was voted on by Cheryl, and Jeff was voted on by Lynn. So now
We need to go back and everybody goes to the top 2, and then you take the 2 with the most.
Third vote for 2 this time?
Yeah, so the top 2 individuals having the highest number of votes at that point.
We vote for 2.
Right now, and then you select out of those top 2.
Okay.
All right.
I like voting for 4. Can we vote for 4?
I have no more papers, let's see.
And perhaps write your name at the top, so. So maybe I'll just have a tally.
Thank you, Larry.
More paper now.
We're making one.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. So out of the 4, our top 2 are Chris and Jeff. Eric, his top 2 were Jeff and Chris. Kellen's top 2 was Jeff and Chris. Cheryl's top 2 was Trent and Chris. And Lynn's top 2 were Jeff and Trent.
So out of the top 2.
So the top 2 will vote on Jeff and Chris. So now everybody just 1 vote for either Chris or Jeff?
Or myself. I know, I can.
I'm writing them on too. So, life is easy. All right. So Len is voted for Jeff, Eric voted for Chris, Cheryl voted for Chris, and Kellen voted for Chris. So that's 3 for Chris. So that's, makes it easy on me, because I did not want to have to break the tie.
So in the last round, sorry, and how did we come up with 3? The 3 and 2, just so I know again. In the last round, we voted for 2 people.
Let's start over.
So there's 8 votes and 2.
You go to 7 council members. Restaurant.
All right.
Okay, we're good. Chris it is. So now we will let you come and sit up here with us. Well, I guess Dave will swear you in first. And Pratt will take your picture and
I'm just sure. I apologize. I needed to print this out so we
Thank
can
you,
make sure we sign
Definitely,
it.
Trent, thank you.
No, you gotta turn that the other way, Rob.
can I turn it this way and point it down? Like over here?
Had to get glare, nobody else could
Oh, that is always fun. Donna, did you get a copy of those questions?
Yeah, I do, thank you.
Alright, sorry, I apologize. I had it on my computer and not printed out, so we're just gonna bring it up here. I'm gonna set this here so I can read it to you. And
Probably a second read it.
they spot you just face me, and if you can get an epic shot of you swearing in your right hand on the Bible.
Everybody's.
So, I state your name,
I, Christopher Wall,
having been elected to the office
having been elected to the office
of City Council for Blanding City,
of City Council for Blanding City,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, you're welcome to your seat.
You said elected, I see. So it's supposed to be appointed.
Appointed, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that later?
It's fine. So, we'll just have to sign this out.
Okay. We are good. So that's your packet. The agenda's in there. It follows a packet. Eric will get to walk you through everything since he's your neighbor there. But if you have questions, ask, because the intent is to not roll through things without knowing what's going on. We will move, well, for the record, we'll excuse Councilmember Grasser. He had to leave to get out of town for the
Goodbye.
grandchild's graduation tomorrow, so we'll excuse him now. We'll start with reports. I'll go first. I feel like I had something, but I can't remember where I wrote
The document that I think.
it. Oh, yeah. A few things. Okay, so I have been attending a meeting. We've done it every 3 months or so with the different mayors in the area, so Monticello, Moab, Bluff, what's the other city on the other side of Moab? Castle Valley. So we've been meeting every 3 months and just kind of things that we've talked about or overnight rental vacation type things, water. And then in addition to that, we've got the league board, so the Utah League of Cities and Town involved to hopefully come down and have a meeting. They'll attend one of our meetings and then they'll attend that meeting as well, just to kind of help make connections and networking and things for anybody that hasn't been able to touch base with the league. In addition, I sent an email out. There's been I've gotten quite a few not complaints, just people talking about how meetings are ran and if there's a specific order of how meetings are ran. And so I got curious and I found a document that the meeting rules that were passed in October of 2000, whatever. I mailed those out to everybody today, so if you want to review them, could review them, it would be good. Nothing too out of the ordinary there. A lot of it follows just Robert's rules of order kind of a thing. And we'll do better at making sure we're going along with that, which we do a fairly decent job.
And I'm sorry, to interrupt you. We can email you what he's talking about. Essentially, it's just what the process is of city council.
Right, and we'll get a city email set up for you so that they're all official. Okay, that's all I have to report. Does council have anything that they wanted to report?
No, to go along with that, I did have, I think what the name of the city is now, up north of the military base up there. Camas is, looked out around the cities that were similar in size, and so their city council had reached out to me to ask if I would just call and talk to them about what we're doing about housing issues. And I'm laughing because it's not anything for any of us, but their growth and their size and they're kind of similar to us in what they're doing within the high housing rates, even though they're this little city. And so anyway, I just have a meeting set up with them. I'm just going to get their input and I'll give them my personal input. But if anyone else wants to be a part of that, we're welcome to.
I'm just up there, Sunday, we got plenty of water.
Water's not an issue for them.
Water's not the issue. But housing is their issue, and they're dealing with the same thing with Airbnbs and overnight rentals and not having enough places to rent, not having anything to buy, they're dealing with all of that too. So it might be good to
Well, just for this, I
call with
mean,
another city or
with
something.
along that same theme, kind of going into the league's discussion, it's on the radar for legislation this year, which I don't really know how I feel about that coming from a legislative standpoint, saying this is what Utah will do with
Right.
vacation rentals.
Yeah,
A lot of their stuff excludes cities of our class or things, but that's not a guarantee. And so that's why the league's super helpful in those kind of things. It's been talked about that there might be a way for smaller communities like this, especially with internet and working from home and things like that, that maybe the state could incentivize different things for smaller cities to come with the market of the housing. There's nothing official, but it's just been time. Anybody else from council have anything to report? Okay, we'll go with the city manager report, David Johnson.
So actually, just kind of picking up where you left off. So in some of my discussions with the League of Cities and Towns and just the state on housing specifically, I always joked when I was in Saratoga Springs and carried the same joke with me that I'm the little drummer boy when it comes to housing and talking about how they're always talking about addressing the housing crisis and affordable housing. And so whenever I talk to the state League of Cities and Towns, I always say, well, if you're talking about affordable housing, quit looking at the lost at front and start looking at rural Utah, where affordable housing and just incentivizing people to build homes for our own kids, like what was discussed tonight. That's the real issue. And so it's good to hear some of that discussion continue to go on. Hopefully we can continue to carry that on. So, some of my reports, I just wanted to give two quick reports. So, which are highlighted in my project status reports on page 13 for your reference. One, the CID application for the Wellness Center fire suppression system and indoor showers. So I actually have the application all complete. Staff has helped me put that together. Right now I have it with our local AOT, Association of Governments, who does the review before it's officially submitted. It's not due till the 1st, but my goal is I'm meeting with that AOG tomorrow afternoon. And my goal is to get that all submitted, if not tomorrow, by the end of the week. So, so I'm really encouraged by that. The only caveat I would say to that is unless they give me some crushing blow to what's in our application tomorrow when I talk to them, I don't think so, because I've already had discussions with both the state rep and the regional AOG. So I'm pretty confident about putting that in.
How confident do you feel about it?
Well, you know, the grant side of it, that's hard because the granting from CID has really decreased dramatically. The loan side, I'm very confident. You know, that, you know, we'd be able to get a loan most likely, if not 0% interest, at very low interest. And so I'm really confident in that, but we'll just kind of see how that goes. And the nice thing is after we formally submit it, the state rep then she talks and meets with us to prepare us to go to the board. And she says, and she told me, if things change, like maybe prices have increased since you applied or whatever, we'll tweak the whole application so that everything's prepped up to date and you have all my recommendations before you actually present to the board. So that gave me a lot of confidence. And I've also spoken with Bruce Adams, who's on the board, and he said he's happy to assist in pushing that.
If the CID board would go as well, if we wanted to do an expansion of the wellness center at the same time.
That's not what's on the list right now.
Right, no, I understand,
So
and I realize we don't have time probably to put that together. But
it could.
Is it,
What I would recommend, if that's the direction that the council would go or wants to go, you need to know sooner than later, because what I would probably want to do is, well, I'll still submit the application and everything, but then I could tell the regional or the state rep, hey, look, the council wants to wait. We want to put on the list something different that's along the same lines. It would just delay the project. Yeah, we could do that if the council decided that. I would recommend that we still move forward the way we are. If the council decides that, let's try to make that decision before we go before the board. But the state rep told me that that she scheduled with us whenever we're ready to go. So it's not like there's a set deadline after.
but I guess maybe you don't know, do they do loans of that size?
Okay.
CID
I mean,
or the expansion?
our loan to,
Historically, I think there's done all kinds of.
we currently have a loan with them on the wellness center. If we want that. And we're only going to be requesting like this.
Zero interest.
And probably how we're gonna put it, oh, that's the other thing I should say. So I know it's in the, I believe I put in the packet for mostly council, but we got the architectural estimates all done, and they actually came in about $160,000 less than what we were anticipating. So we're anticipating 700,000. It's coming in more like 550,000. So actually, that's about $130,000 to $40,000 less. And so that's a positive thing. So probably what we're looking to do is take some city savings and some loan, probably requesting a loan in the tune of somewhere around $200,000, whether it's over 10 or 15 years. The loan would probably be anywhere between, you know, like 15,000 to 20,000, depending on in addition to our current. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight is we got early an estimate on the Westwater water side of the project. So the power side of the project is moving forward great, and Terry can kind of speak to that a little bit more. The good news is that the side of the project for Blanding, is $1.9 million or something to that tune, less than what they were estimating. They're estimating $5.7 million and it came in at 3.8 million. The difficult news is, the state only has appropriated thus far $1.65 million that they got through the ARPA through legislation. And right now, we are working with the state to tell them clearly that the city does not have the funding or the staff resources and time. This is what we told them from the beginning, to pursue grants, loans, etc. Like we told them from the start, if we're going to move forward with this project, then the state has to fully fund it. And that was the premise from the start. And so I actually had representatives from the church call me that said that they will be working with the state to help figure out a means to fill that gap if the council would like to continue to move forward. So right now we're working on the MOU to bring to the council to see if this is something you want to go forward with. But we believe, staff and I believe, that there's issues still with the MOU that we want to work all those kinks out. And right now there's a few versions going around and we're trying to work with the state to say, okay, let's look at what the current version is that you have and let's address some of these issues. So that's what we're going to do. And once we've got those issues addressed, then we'll bring it to council for a discussion item to say, hey, council, is this something you want to continue moving forward with? If it is, then we'll take these steps. If it is not, then we'll just tell the state kindly, thank you for the offer of the 1.65 million, but please use it for the project, what the original plan was. Because if you remember, and this is more of a refresher for you, Chris, and I can fill you in a little bit more. The original plan was they were going to dig a deep well at Westwater itself. Then they approached the city and said, hey, could you guys just sell them water? And I said, whoa, we're looking for our own deep well, and the cost would be astronomical for us to do that. I said, but if you could fully fund it, I'll take it to the council for consideration. And so far, to the state's credit, in addition to 1.65 million, they have given us almost $500,000 that helped us update our water master plan and is giving us covering the cost for preliminary engineering and design of a deep well. So even if we decide we're not moving forward with this project, all that's still ours. So in the future, if we decide to dig an additional deep well, we still can. So anyways, it's not great news. It's not necessarily bad news, but it's really kind of moot news, and we'll see where it goes.
They're about $2.2 million short.
They're $2.2 million short.
Church will fill in the gaps. What does that mean?
The church said
Committed in.
they have, so the church has already committed, how much did they commit on the power side of the project? The church committed $500,000 on the power side of the project, which is significantly less. But they've reached out to me twice in the last week or so since we got the estimate to say, hey, we understand where that's at. Once we've got a little more, once you've got the design and the MOU is more finalized, let us know, and they're gonna kind of go back and see what they can contribute. So right now that 2.2 million really is in the air. So I don't really have any recommendation one way or the other, to be honest. If they can't make that gap, then in my opinion, my professional recommendation would be that it's not possible, and that, you know, they need to defer back to their original plan. And that's what I've told the state several times, but we'll see where it goes. So and I'll keep you posted. So that's all I have for my updates for today.
Any questions for David?
Yeah, I thought the council said several meetings ago that we were done with this project. We were moving on to the wellness center.
I think we talked about bringing it back to the agenda so that we can make decisions, and I think that's what they're gonna do when the MOU comes forward.
If the MOU
Has
includes
to
the
be on the
county,
agenda.
I'm not in.
The MOU will come and then we can vote on it. Is that?
Is it going on the next agenda?
No, so
Oh.
it's not. It has some work to do. So we're trying to get all those things hammered out, and I'm looking to bring it to the council on the second meeting in June. The MOU is what we're shooting for.
Any other questions? Okay, finance, Kim Palmer.
Hello, everyone. Do you have any questions on the report?
If you could just pull up the webpage.
Yes, I will. I'm sorry, I've got two mice that I'm working here.
Yeah, mice and
Nieces. The city webpage you're saying, or you're
Uh-huh.
talking about?
no, just go to the city webpage.
I'm sorry, where are we going? My mind is thinking of
That's
natural
a good
gas.
place to start, right where you're at.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we don't want to take the survey though. Shall we move on? Okay, so we've been working on working with a company, ClearGov, to help us be a little bit more transparent with our budgeting for the community. And I was really hoping this would have been done in time for our budget work sessions, but it wasn't. But it came through last week and Pratt has put it onto the website. So David, if you go back up there to the top and go to, if you'll give me the mouse, and I will see if I can find it.
Under government.
I kind of like to.
Oh, you know what? Actually, let me screen share this so that the public can see what you're sharing as well. I'm sorry.
If you go to government, oh, you want the mouse back?
Yeah, sorry, let me screen share so that the public can see on YouTube. Right, there you go.
Okay, so into budgets. And then go slow. If you go to this online, tap on the mouse. You'll see this great, awesome page. I hope. Gonna run a little bit slow because you're sharing it. Okay. So we put the proposed version up here and it will allow citizens to come in and look at different budgeting aspects of the city. We've included some demographics of the community. That's pretty good, and it will update as things change. We have a budget overview, fund summary, and then there's some detail back here that will allow residents to go through and actually look at what our budget looks like and how much we budgeted for certain things in certain areas. And this should pop up a chart. A couple of charts are in here with a spreadsheet details below it that can be clicked on. There's historical information included. This kind of gives us a good overview of where the budget has been allocated to each year. So this is really good for transparency. There are several cities in the state and actually in the nation that uses this program, this company to help be a little bit more transparent in things. So I just want to make you aware that that's on there now. We'll be updating it when we pass the budget. We will go in and update it with the approved budget on there. And then there are some places we still need to add a few, stuff like a letter and that kind of stuff we can add to that. But I'm pretty pleased with it. It's a little frustrating trying to get it put together, but once it comes together, I think it looks good. I think it would be a good thing for the residents. They can look through and kind of see what are you spending on recreation, what are you spending on water, how much are you spending on salaries, and it'll be just a good way to share that information with them, make it more transparent.
So if you remember right, last year we created a little button in the pamphlet and stuff that we mailed out to our residents and had here available. This essentially replaces that, and then this program will also help us. The budget books, it will come straight from this program as well. So it's just a little more easy to digest, I guess.
So I'd say go, especially for Chris who's down there and hasn't been through the budget process before, it'd be a great place just to go through and look. It has historical information as far back as, well, the graphs will clear back to 2007, but the spreadsheets only go back to 2020. So
When did we start using this? This is the first.
we just put it on the website last week, is that right?
Friday.
Friday.
And where did it come from? Like, where did this ClearGov?
Where did I learn about it?
Yeah, where did you learn about it?
We get
I
solicited. a lot.
actually got, I belong to an organization, GFOA, and they, on one of the, boards, they were talking about which was better, ClearGov or, there's another one, and they were discussing it, so I just reached out to get some information, and they did a demo, and I was pleased with that. We're gonna be able to add, stuff about personnel, capital projects, and all that kind of stuff to the program. And it'll help us to track that from one year to the next, instead of using a lot of spreadsheets to try to find that paper. It will all be on there and accessible by whoever would like to look at it. That's all I have on the financial side. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
So on the revenue portion, with where was the COVID was budgeted there, that amount was transferred to water?
Yes, so I put that into water because we've talked about using that for the AMI, and that's where it will have to come from, so we just moved it. You'll see that in the budget adjustment, and then that we'll be doing next council meeting.
And then on like, so for like football revenue or volleyball, basketball, so those sports revenues, we budgeted a higher amount than we brought in, what? I mean, obviously we can't predict what's gonna happen,
We
but
can't predict.
is there a reason why we would budget? I know this, we budgeted it, this went through the council, but the 5712, when the prior year was the 25.
I think what we did when we budgeted that for last year, because the year before was the COVID year, we went back a previous year and used that number, which was higher, but then when COVID came along, a lot of those participants never came back. Some of those, so those numbers were down. And then also remember that when we do the coaches reimbursement, it comes out of that revenue because it's a refund essentially.
Any questions for Kim on the finance? Okay, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, so number 5, Public Works, Terry.
Mayor and council, nothing too new or different. You've had a chance to look at that. Westwater on the power project out there, we were looking at some pretty big delays, and those have resolved themselves. We should be done pretty much next week, I believe. That'll be good. They have a Life Navajo program. Bountiful City should be out there, I think, June 13th that week, and start doing distribution.
How long it'll take them on their end of things?
I don't know. What I do know is Bountiful's committed to 1 week. And so I believe a couple of crews, and what they don't get done, NTUA will finish up. So we can have power out there, by 4th of July. Any questions there? Street maintenance, we're just working, trying to get that fit into our workload. Water master plan, I have a draft that I'm reviewing right now, so I would suspect we'll be coming back to present that report to the council here next month. Natural gas master plan, we're trying to get that out and get a consultant selected. We did have our compliance audit here last month. For the norm, they always have some findings and corrections that we need to make. There was a new section 114, some requirements that we need to comply with there, and we'd never heard of section 114 or its adoption, and they said that was pretty consistent with the other municipal gas companies, so some work there. Our dam inspections, and David and I were both out of town. Trevor was able to meet with those guys from the state, and that was a good experience for him, get a little more familiar with the dams and how those inspections go with the regulators, and no big surprises or issues with the dams. Any questions on the Public Works project report?
What's your timeframe on getting the scope of work with street maintenance project?
I don't even know, Chris. For sure. So on our streets money, we just budget forward everything that we get from our C roads, from the gas tax and everything.
For sure, we'd like to do at least a seal coat project this year. And so that part of it should come pretty quick, and that's pretty small. That would be our parking lot here that we paved recently, and then the Meadowlark subdivision. While we have those folks here, I think I'm certain we're looking at 2023 construction on most of the others, so.
We're doing some patch stuff around town now.
Yeah, some of that will happen this week. The big water leak we had on Second East being the main one, and then a couple others. We'll just, usually what we do, that'll be the city crew doing that. So we'll bring in one truckload of asphalt and complete the big patch, and then whatever else we can get on that load, and then, yeah.
About that spot by the elementary school.
I think that's on the list.
Was-
Well, or that one may not be.
The drop off area.
Yeah.
Well, we also have the sewer transport across the road down there. And so, I can't remember what Preston told me, if we were trying to get that one on this one, or if we're waiting for the next time so that we could take care of, where it's really raveling right against the curb on that west side. He's kind of heading that up. Other questions?
Sounds like it. Okay. All right, number 6, building permit process for applicants. This is Brett and Pratt. However,
So Pratt's going to be presenting, and then Brett can respond to any specific technical questions.
perfect.
All right, Mayor and Council, Chris, we're happy to have you here. I know your other employment has a popcorn and soda machine, and I don't know, I'm not throwing any ideas out there, but,
Brad, we know you like the soda stop, so it's down the street.
Well, you guys have any questions or concerns with these graphics in front of you?
Well, just for the public sake, can you just kind of preface kind of how this came about and
Yeah.
presenting this?
Yeah, I think the main concern we had is how do we make it more accessible for the community? Blanding's a unique place where we have people that come in and do, relatively large scale commercial developments, and we have people that want to just build a little pergola or shop in the back of their house, and they don't need as much, themes for those types of building permits. So we're trying to find a process that concisely puts everything in one spot, and that way people can look and see what it would take to build the project they're looking to build, without having to come in and, take up too much time. That allows them to really get a flow at least of what it would take, and it's simple and easy enough to say, I'm just not interested, or yeah, I'll do this, and I'm gonna go talk with Brett and Terry and figure everything out.
Can you access this through the stuff Kim was showing us, or is that not?
Is this online?
It's not online now. We wanted to make sure we work through changes and whatnot before we put it on there, but this is, that's the best way to put it. This is a draft. It can be online as soon as tomorrow, but it would just be on our website. I know we have a whole building. Yeah, we have a whole building permit page that walks them through, zoning and codes and quite a few different things, but yeah, but in a less simplified way, less user friendly. This would really help the public just to get to be able to look at it and say, okay, I see what I need to do. And if they're real technical savvy, they could do it all on their own and submit the building permit, and would work with them from there. But most people don't get that far. But
Well, I think kind of the point is a lot of times people, especially someone that's building, whether it's a business or a home or something for the first time, they've not been through this process. And so they may think they're, 3/4 of the way through the process, and they're just through the first 2 steps and don't realize it. And this just spells it out so they know, okay, here's where I'm at in this process to make this complete, to hopefully make it less frustrating.
yeah, timeline what frustrates people the most. I could be wrong. Brett probably gets more cussing than other things, but it seems like what people tend to get so mad about from when I'm listening in my office to Brett, it's like, well, why does it take so long? But often someone will come in and they'll say, I've got everything I need. I want my permit in 5 days. With these two especially, I'll see them move mountains, get it done, and then they take like a week or two and they don't get back to us, and then all of a sudden it's a month, and it's suddenly their fault. Whereas, they approved it, they put it in the planning review, maybe they had a change or something. And they're confused. I know like on this page, we put, you know, especially on that time, they have 14 working days to get it, and with each change, you know, if they don't have a site plan, or they don't have any electrical drawings, things, it allows them to get that back to us. You guys typically get through them quickly, but
Because often people will get frustrated, say they turn in their application, but it was incomplete. And, you know, we have 14 days to review it, so maybe it takes us 7 days to get to it. We review it, we find, oh, it's incomplete, and then we turn it back to them. We say, hey, you gotta complete this. Well, when they return it back in, it starts that 14 days. Well, of course, we try to do it faster than that, but that can be frustrating for people. So part of what this does too is it encourages them to make sure they submit their applications complete the first time, so it doesn't slow the process up more, so.
And as for subdivisions, those are obviously a little more time consuming. They have to go to planning commission, and then some of them come back to city council even. But again, you know, in a matter of 3 or 4 steps, it allows them to see what it would take. And, you know, again, maybe that deters them from doing it, but at least they'll have the information and they don't start building and then have to subdivide. And that's going to be really hard.
All right, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to just say a little bit here, Mayor and Council. If you listen to all of your prospective candidates for your city council seat, almost to the T, every one of them said that they wanted Blanding to grow, but they wanted it to be grown carefully. And so as we go forward as a community, we have to think about that when we're dealing with all of these issues. You know, people want to grow, maybe they want Airbnbs, but they don't want them just willy-nilly all over the place. And so that means that sometimes you tell people no, or that they can't do exactly what they want. You got to help them say, well, we allow that, but this is how we allow it or something. So just keep that in mind. I mean, even Lawrence or Larry, you know, was concerned that we didn't have enough regulation. And so we have to balance that with all the people wanting as much freedom as they can have as well.
But who's gonna enforce the regulations?
That's the question.
We're just like the federal government. We have so many laws and state government, laws and rules, ordinances and whatnot, that are not enforceable because we don't have the manpower to enforce them. And then we get stuck with guys like Rick, who's trying to do his job, and all of a sudden he's the bad guy. You're already the bad guy in the city.
Well, it take turns with Terry and some other people.
Really.
Yeah, we get cussed.
Larry says compliance. Who's gonna enforce that? You know, who's gonna enforce?
In the bigger cities, like they would tell you in Saratoga, they probably had a whole division that did that.
We are not a bigger city.
Well, that's the point he's making, yeah.
That's the point I'm making.
Balance.
It's a delicate balance there that we've got to look at.
In the state, it's forced a lot of laws.
And I'm gonna go back to my point is, my property line, stay off. If you're coming to enforce something to me that I don't think is right, stay off.
Any questions for Pat or Brett about this community development permit process specifically?
It's a valid point, though, in what Eric's saying. We want to make things easier and not create rules and regulations that are unnecessary. The point that people miss, a lot of people who come to me or people who come talk to me, is that the state, most of these codes that we enforce are from the state. They're not from the city of Blanding, unfortunately.
But the reality of it is, I agree with Eric, less is better in a lot of ways. The reality of it is the world is complicated and you can't make everything super easy.
But then we're back to, as Blanding City, the chief doesn't have time to go get everybody that's non-compliant boats parked on the street, because that's been brought up in council before, boats on the street. The chief doesn't have time to do trivial matters. And to me, we've got streets that I can turn a semi around in a lot of our streets. Any intersection, I guarantee you, a good truck driver is going to turn that truck around in the street, no matter what's even parked there.
some communities come to us and go, wow, look at your streets. And then I was on council last time when we created a wastewater. We have a wastewater because we have 100-foot wide streets and curb and gutter. Things that we probably really didn't need to have. Because that water would have gone into the ground instead of running away.
All right, I mean, do you feel good with where this flow chart is going?
I like this.
Is this what it's going, so when they click on it, it will look like this?
It'll just pull, yeah,
It'll pull
we'll
this
make
up.
it a PDF so they can print it and use it as they wish.
Okay,
We can also have them available at the front desk, so that if somebody comes in that's not around and just has questions, we can give them.
I don't know about, and does it address, so I know Brett takes a lot of these questions, but I need to put in a shed, and what's the size that I can put in and not need a building permit? I just asked you that question not very long ago. So is it gonna address those kind of things, or you're not going that?
We can
in-depth?
add-
This is more high level than that, so that they can just see the general process of what it needs to go through. And that's why one of the first steps is talking with our building official and our city engineer, so that they can dive into the specifics. Are they building a shed, or are they doing an add-on on the side of the house, which has to say.
All that stuff's online,
Right,
so they can find it, but they're gonna have to take a few minutes to. look
I
it
just
up.
wondered if you compiled the top 5 questions you were asked, and we put them in here so people can find them, but that might save you some time from having to answer the same question over and over again.
Yeah.
I would imagine sheds are a big issue.
A frequently asked questions block would be as easy to add as these PDFs, so we'll add that in.
This looks great, though.
Thank
I
you.
love the transparency in the accounting side, and this is great.
All right, we have a couple public hearings and we need to do them
Well,
separate.
you can do a motion to go into public hearing for both.
But so,
But separate.
But hold on. Or do we need to?
So I remember-
separate, just.
I remember for the, yeah, for the
That's
community
true.
block grant, it was,
Yeah.
so number one, I would take a motion to go into public hearing for the community development block grant.
I'll make a motion that we go into public hearing number 2 for the CPDG, Community Block Development Grant.
It'd be.
It's listed on our staff report as public hearing number 2.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. But it is for the community development block grants. There's a motion by Councilmember Bowers. Do we have a second? Okay, so it's a motion by Councilmember Bowers and a second by Councilmember Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's everyone here with Councilmember Gosser not here anymore. So we're now in public hearing for the community development block grant. If anybody wants to speak to us from the public about that.
Those are pickleball folks, yeah, gosh.
Uh,
Contact me about this thing.
For the record, Pratt Red, I work for the city, and I'm also a member of the community. I just had a couple of thoughts I wanted to put on the record, and, you know, I think as Cheryl had mentioned earlier today, you guys had some hard decisions in the last few months, and it seems like we've had in the last few years, so I appreciate everything that's gone on with this, especially around the budget, and especially concerned when we do have to use some of our funds, and those could possibly be used in other scenarios. One thing I wanted to say is the reason, part of the reason we're doing that is these funds were committed back in December. We originally looked into this grant for the wellness center. We found out we couldn't use them for a paid building, a building that requires paid enter. And then from there, we looked at a few different recreation items. This is kind of what we came up with. The other point to this as well is these grant funds are not on the table for Blanding City. The way they do this is they'll have people come in and they'll do it based on a survey of income and things of that nature. And so these funds could be gone next year. I've been here for 4 years. This is the first year they've been available to us. So it's a good chance to take an opportunity and use them. And my third thought was, while there's a chance this could cost us, you know, upwards of $40,000, we are receiving $70,000, and I'm choosing to look at this as a worthwhile recreation benefit to the town. As you look at pickleball, the way that it's growing, and the people that can use it, from kids to grandmas and grandpas, it will benefit really the entire community, as well as tourists, as well as, you know, people from the county and things of that nature as well. when you break it down into that scenario, the cost per person, it's a relatively inexpensive project for what we're getting. So I appreciate everyone's understanding with that, and I think this will be a great asset to the town, and it's a low maintenance asset as well. It's cement and a net. Those tennis courts next to it have lasted for years and years, and have been a relatively low maintenance cost as well, so.
You already have one.
Already have lighting, the infrastructure, and so. Yeah, just thank you, and know that I understand your concerns, and hopefully I've helped clear up some of those, but we're excited for this, and it will be a good chance and a good thing to have for the town, so thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public want to address that? Okay, so do we need a motion to leave this public hearing and then another one? All right, I'll take the motion to leave the public hearing for the community development.
I'll make the motion to leave public hearing number 2.
I'll second.
So Councilmember Grover and Councilmember Bowers to leave the community development block grant public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have another public hearing, our city budget and enterprise transfers for fiscal year 2023. I'll take a motion to go into that public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that is Councilmember Milton and Councilmember Ewald, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's everyone. So we are in public hearing for public or city budget and enterprise transfers.
Just real quick for information purposes and for Chris, each year we transfer money from the enterprise funds into the general fund to help with overhead costs from those companies. And this is just a procedure that we have to hold a public hearing in case there's information that the public wants to share with us or questions regarding those transfers. And then we're also have the public hearing included with that is the fiscal 2023 budget there for public comment. And hopefully we'll be able to pass that on the 14th so that we'll be done with that concept.
Can you say to me where how much you put, right here. This is how much you're transferring to the general fund?
And it'll be same monthly, so we budgeted it comes out each.
24,000 monthly?
No.
Oh,
That's yearly.
okay, that's, I was like, whoa, that's good.
No.
It's divided.
You're charging too much for all this.
All right, anybody else from public hearing on budget enterprise transfer? Good. Okay, I'll take a motion to leave public hearing for the city budget and enterprise transfer.
We'll vote on this at the budget, when we approve the budget.
Yeah, that's included in the budget.
Motion to leave public hearing on utilities transfer.
Second.
Okay, that's Councilmember Grover and Councilmember Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Everybody. All right, Ken, just quick note, on the page 28 of that, the total general fund years, are those correct? There it says 2021 and 2022. 28 on our pathway.
At the top, no?
So down at the
Middle of the
bottom,
page.
middle of the page, it says total
Oh, yeah,
general
right there.
funds.
Under total.
Yeah, it kind of didn't tell me that right. I thought I fixed that. I will fix that before the resolution comes back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion items, we're on solid waste agreements.
Okay, so Mayor and Council, just as a brief highlight, we discussed this briefly in your budget work session. Quiet on the set there, Brent.
There we go. Number one.
Thank you. So we have the waste management agreement that we've had in place historically has followed the CPI, the index for the economy, what inflation, et cetera. The CPI this year is going up 8.3%. But in the contract, they're allowed when gas prices and stuff go up to pass on gas prices to us, which will increase it to 13.1% increase. That's about a $2 increase to our customers if we were to go with that. Now, we have the option this year to go to a different index called the WST, water, sewer, and trash. And, or is it wastewater, sewer, and trash? I think
Water, sewer,
water,
trash.
sewer, and trash, yes, thank you. It is a less volatile index than the CPI because it only takes into account those utilities. So for example, if we were already on the WST index, instead of increasing 8.3 and having gas prices passed on to us, we would only increase 4.2%, which would only be about $1 increase in the garbage per can. However, the option to go to that, there are upfront costs to switch to that, which would increase the rate by 17% the first year. So instead of going up, so our current, let's be clear, our current rate would increase no matter what, $2. If we switch to the WST, it would increase $3. But in the long term, the WST is going to be less volatile based on what's going on in the economy. So if gas prices shoot up, CPI is going to shoot up. But the WST is not going to shoot up in the same way because it only compares to water, sewer, trash. And the other thing that Waste Management tells us is the WST never goes higher than the CPI. So we could stick with the CPI, but the really long term, and that's where the council kind of was sitting in the work session, wanted to just chew on it more because up front it hurts a little bit more, but in long term we'll see rates increase less year over, if that makes sense. So I apologize for the long-winded re-explanation. I just want to make sure the public understands that as well as our new council member. So right now it's just left for discussion.
Yeah, so, sorry, I was gonna say, what discussion do you have?
So what happens if gas prices go back down to $2 a gallon?
They're passing on the,
Do they pass on the savings? That's what I don't fully understand about increasing the $3.
so
I don't think that, I think they'll continue to operate in this new fashion because what they learned was that where they were using commercial to offset the residential, and all of a sudden this happened. And my guess is they're going to continue to include that fuel in that rate so that if this happens again, they're already going down that path.
But either one will follow the market.
the respective index.
Right, so the index will follow, and if it goes down, they would pass that rate on. They wouldn't leave it up
So if we go to
and pass that to us, right?
right, so if we go to the WST, they're not going to pass on those fuel rates. But if we stick with the
They're
CPI,
included already.
right, they're included already. The reason why they're going to start passing on the gas to us now is not only because gas has gone up, but because what they learned, what Kim was saying, is that in the past, residential garbage rates have been subsidized by commercial. When COVID hit and there was all of this online, there wasn't nearly as much commercial garbage. They weren't making money, and moving forward, it's still looking that way. And they said moving forward, this is how they'll operate, is that they will no longer subsidize residential through commercial, which is why they're recommending.
What were the like CPI rate increases in previous year? What were they typically like?
Oh, we've seen 1.5, we've seen 2.
I think this is the second time that we've seen, I mean, since Cheryl and I have been here.
They've been relatively small in a way that we could, some of those smaller ones we just let it go and absorb it and not give it an increase. But when they, this is a big one. Even at the 8.7 that we were anticipating, that was a big one compared to what we've been seeing over the past few years. I guess that it comes down to, do you want to increase the rate by, what was it, $2 or
$2.50 or
$3.25. So
$3.25?
the truth,
What about commercial?
We don't handle the commercial. The commercial is handled very strictly by Waste Management.
Okay.
so the thing is while CPI is only increasing 8.3%, they're also going to start passing on the gas costs. Whereas the WST, it's going to be all inclusive. and less volatile.
Well, in some parts of the country, they're already seeing $6 plus fuel.
Exactly, yeah.
Councilmember Rogers, did you have a question?
I thought that, when we reviewed the waste management here in the past, we got to see the commercial rates. And that was, I guess that's when we reviewed the overall contract with them, and whether we're going to go out to and to look for new.
So the commercial rates you may be talking about, I have to go back and look, but I'm thinking they're probably our rates for our dumpsters, for our wellness center, for the police station, for Petro Park. Maybe those were the ones you're seeing, but we don't see what they charge
The customer.
Reds or.
What is it, give a fee? It's got commercial rates on there.
We had a discussion about commercial rates, but this was back when we were trying to decide if it needs to go out to bid again. Because part of the agreement for Blanding City is that they could also provide our commercial services. And now it's subsidizing, it was not subsidizing some of the private services. But, so we had a discussion about what those rates were, to make sure they didn't go too high for our commercial.
So to clarify, we are kind of the liaison for residential rates and residential garbage, whereas we're not the middleman essentially for the commercial.
So Councilmember Grover had a question, and this question was on Exhibit B, what is the commercial rates here? And on the next page, on page 34, it breaks down all of our commercial things, and so I'm assuming that the rates that they're giving us here is because we are a commercial customer as well.
Yes.
Is that what this is? Because this is a
That is correct.
collection service agreement that we have, and it's attached, I'm assuming it's attached to this exhibit B that was signed in 2017.
So, and we didn't clarify this with him, but the only one that they're actually charging us for is, I want to say, they're only charging us for one of these parts, and I'm not sure right off the head, I will pull the invoice and tell you. So all these other locations we're getting, they're picking it up, there's no cost to us. Other than, I think there's one, I can't remember if it's ARL or if it's the South Park, one or the other we are paying for. The others are just, it's a free service to us because we have our business with them. And I can see you're still thinking about
Yeah,
that.
because
And I do.
our commercial rates
remember-
matter. The commercial rate should matter with who we decide to contract for our city, because if they want to charge $1,000 to our commercial customers, so that they can do our residents for $18 a bin, we have, as a council, we have to be careful about that they're not overcharging our commercial customers.
Probably.
So if I might, and
So
maybe in response to this.
we don't have the commercial rates yet, or what they're doing. We
No,
don't
I
know
didn't
the
see
city,
that in what he
we don't know
said.
the city, for the city.
I don't know what they're charging community-wide on that.
And if I might, I would say the distinction about us not being the liaison for commercial rates means that if another commercial, or if another garbage company wanted to come into town and provide commercial garbage services, they could do that. Nothing in our contract prevents another commercial garbage entity to come in and provide services to other businesses. Yeah.
If you'd like to see those rates. I
Well,
can-
we see, I mean, this was the service agreement that was signed.
Uh-huh.
We'll get a new one when it comes time to do that, right? And
Then
that
you'll vote on it.
should be there as well.
We
I
can
mean, we don't know on
I
that.
would assume so. I know we've seen the process of compiling the information.
Yes, because they were bought out by Waste Management, so Waste Management is just honoring this contract. But essentially I think these commercial rates are here more for our reference.
Look at this, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we went through a whole thing. They were here, they made a presentation.
Yeah, it's when they bought out Baker.
Oh, we had to renew.
When they bought out Baker, they came and gave the presentation on how they're gonna serve the community and all of that.
But I don't think there was any new contract.
But there wasn't a new contract, there was just an agreement that they would assume Baker's current contract with their
Me personally, as a member of the community, if they wanna haul my trash for $22.50 or whatever it is, more power to you, because I can't drive to the transfer station 4 times a month and take the time to dump my own trash. I know it'll go away.
So this is on for discussion item. Do you need
We just
we've
need-
had a discussion.
We
Is
just
there
need
any more?
advice and consent.
Or, you know,
If you would like us to move forward with
No, this is.
renegotiating the contract with the WST, or if you would like us to just move forward with our current contract as is.
Now, you said the WSD will consistently be lower than the CPI.
Yes, yes. He did say when they get really low, like in the 1%, that's the only time you make, they're about the same, and maybe the CPI goes a little bit lower, he said, but only in those really low circumstances. Do you say that?
You see any detriment to signing up for the WSD besides that initial slight increase?
No, and Kim can tell me if she thinks differently, but we see as far as the long term, rather than seeing these huge spikes, the WST is what we recommend.
So is there a spreadsheet that shows, here's the WST over the last 10 years, and here's the,
Yes,
there is?
There was, and we saw, is that what you showed us last time, or did we not see that? Am I making that up?
no, we did get that from Dan, he emailed that over, I can share that with you.
Okay.
Let me,
Just to me, that would be important to see that the WST is really going to save our customers rather than bumping them 17% initially, and never being able to hit that initial 17%.
I don't think the C rates for them.
No, I agree with you. The question is which one is better for us, the 13.2 or the 17, but it's hard to know that without seeing an
well, the
overall
thing is,
picture of what those rates have been.
and I apologize, the first year it's gonna be 17.2, but then every year after, it's gonna be in the, probably like the 4% range, where you're gonna see the CPI being like the 13% range, because they're gonna be passing off those gas costs, and you're gonna have a higher index. So right now, it's like, it's a little more comparative, the 13 to 17, but next year it should drop down. At least that's how they explain it to us. So, and that's our understanding as we've researched it as well.
Well, we're talking an annual amount of, so for the $39 or the $30, which is minimal, but some people don't have minimal, so those things are real costs and worth looking at. Kim, did you have something?
I was talking about how it drops. You know,
It's on,
yeah.
it must not have been important.
And I think that's a good way to phrase it is our current contract is gonna increase the first year $19 on the current contract, or the first year $39 increase for the whole year. Whereas, in the following years, we're not gonna see this level.
And we might, the thing is we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what's gonna happen, rates, I would,
Which is why we need to see a historical number.
The key point is WST is less volatile. That is a fact, that it is less volatile, because it's not based on the whole economy, it's just based on those specific utility services.
Sounds like a good way to go. Saves people money in the long run and more stable. I like that.
I personally am going to abstain from any advice and consent, because I'd like to see historical history. We're talking about $1. I understand that, but the problem is dollar after dollar after dollar through the years, it adds up, and I don't like raising costs and not knowing if we are going to see that stabilize for our customers. So for me, I'd like to see a financial history of that WST compared to to whatever the other index is, so that I can make a decision. So I wouldn't give advice and consent on this today, for me personally.
If for some reason we don't like the WSD, could we switch back to the CPI and renegotiate?
We always could, yeah. Well, no.
when is the contract?
I doubt we could, because then we'd be going.
The contract's up right now, and it's on a 5-year auto renewal, so essentially, we could just continue carrying on our current contract, or we can move the WST. So right now really is the opportune time if we're gonna make that
By when?
transition.
We're talking
In July, I think is when it.
in July.
Yeah.
So could we see,
Well, I mean, when we bring the contract, we can ask them to provide, when we bring the contract to you, if there's advice and consent to go with the WSG, we could bring, that 10, or that, we could bring that to the council graph that shows the comparison on
Let me, Dave, I think that,
it. Did you pull something up?
I found that the information that he gave me.
Yeah, all he sent me were spreadsheets. I don't,
Yeah, but it has the historical, I can find it, I just had there it is. Let me forward you this email, you can pull it up.
oh, I've got it right here. I thought, you were talking about a graph that he sent us, so I got the spreadsheet.
It's a spreadsheet.
Okay, yeah. So, let me go to CPI, for example. And can we come here? I just want to make sure we're looking at the same thing.
It says CPI for 2023.
Yeah. So, oh yes, so we've got the two tabs here. Okay.
Yeah.
So for example, CPI, I'll just read you the last 10 years, 2.9.
Put on your share.
What? Let me see if I can. Hold on. Well, I just, I don't want to share this screen to there because then it'll get me out of the Zoom stuff. So let me just see what I can pull up real quick. And report it to myself.
I mean, with two options, I don't know if it would be too complicated to see it when we have the conflict, when we are making this decision. It's not like we're trying to do that 3 options, there's 2 options that. It would hurt to see both of them side by side.
Try and pull something up real quick.
The light glare across the two.
So this is the spreadsheet right here, the CPI. Let me just do a screen share and try to see if it'll allow me to increase. And here's the CPI. Let me do a screen share for the public real quick. So this is CPI without fuel passed on. And this is just month to month. So you can see, we'll just look at January for consistency. So 2.9, 1.6, 1.6, negative 0.1, 1.4, 2.5. So month to month, it's been pretty low, and then boom. Here is
That's our current index. Right?
That's our current index, correct. So, and you can see this month in April, so you can see April's over there. So it looks like it kind of goes up during the April, May time a little bit consistently.
That doesn't include fuel.
This doesn't include fuel costs, which now on will be also passed on.
They use April for the cassette there. That's the CPI they use is April.
So is this the WST? So you can see 5.3, 4.7, 3.4. See, these are really consistent. Basically 3 to 4. I mean, 10 years ago it was in the 5, but it's staying right around that 3 to 4% range. Whereas the CPI, if the economy is good, I don't know why it's not scrolling.
When he explained the difference between the two, the CPI includes everything, right? It encompasses everything, including water, sewer, and trash. But the water, sewer, and trash only include water, sewer, and trash. It doesn't include all of that other stuff in that index.
So you can see here too, like while the economy was good, the CPI was low. And then with the changeover in, federal elections and things, all of a sudden, boom, you're seeing a jump. And then a lot of other things going on in the economy, you jump from a 0.3 to 4.2 to an 8.3, whereas you see the WST pretty much stays consistent in the 3 to 4 range. And that was kind of his point, is that WST just has a lot less volatility.
It was kind of surprised they didn't go with money. I think what happened was when we were at Baker, they used the CPI and so Waste Management discontinued, or they had to stay in that agreement. They discontinued that way, but he did state that we were one of a few customers that continued to use the CPI.
So this isn't in percentages, but this is dollars per gallon on gas. So this now, moving forward, right now, April is 509. This is what's going to be passed on to the city.
It's gonna be, probably, it'll be 540.
Yeah,
For May.
exactly. Right.
Unless it goes crazy in the next few days.
So essentially, yes, you're correct, and that's why we've stuck with, from my understanding, historically, we've stuck with the CPI because, you know, the economy's good, it's good. But now, when the economy's bad, it's bad. Plus, even if the economy goes good again, they're basically going to be passing on those gas costs to us.
Forever.
Is there a general direction the council wants to have staff go with this? I mean, personally, to me, I like the WST better. You know, the cost is a little bit more, but I think it's more consistent.
I agree. I think, especially in today's economy, it sounds like the way to go, especially if we can possibly have the option of going back if for some reason it doesn't work out the way we think. Especially in a recession.
Sorry, agree. Councilman Bowers. Okay, so I think the general idea is that the direction would be WST.
We'll come back to the council with a contract, hopefully, if not the first meeting in June, the second meeting in June.
All right, discussion item number 2 is the natural gas rate study.
Oh, are you all excited to talk about natural gas? Awesome.
I'm not hooked up.
Did you PDF it when you sent it to me? Or was it-
Yes, sir.
With propane,
Electric, all electric?
I had an uncle
That is not.
when he was building a house, he was a retired fireman from El Paso, Texas. And he said, I went in too many fires from propane and natural gas. This house will be electric.
I've got it. Did you email it again to me earlier today?
Yeah.
And let me just make sure so I got this.
Okay, Dave's pulling that up. The natural gas company is almost 30 years old. It's actually 27 years old. And
paid off.
it is paid off. All but the little bit that it still owes the electric company. So back in 2020, when we did pay off the big loan, we began discussions about what we needed to do with the company. And we talked about doing a rate study and just having them go in and look at our company and see how healthy we were. Help us make sure we were right on the right path to be profitable, to cover our expenses and prepare for the unexpected. Well, COVID came along, everything went to a screeching halt. We lost the city manager, we gained another city manager, and we kind of put it off. But this current year, it was budgeted for the study. And we used UFS, which is who we used when we did the electric study. They were really easy to work with. Again, they had all of our information. We just had to provide them stuff on the stuff on the natural gas company. I'm going to do most of this presentation, but if you have technical questions, we're going to ask Terry to help us out. Okay, so talking with them, they asked me, what kind of are you looking at? And I just want to make sure the company is profitable we're charging a rate that's fair, that's going to help us build some savings for upcoming, projects. A couple of years ago, we did the odorizer. It came entirely out of savings. It was $90,000. We budgeted $150 to do it for less, and we paid for that. So they come up with some purposes for the study, which is to determine the utilities revenue requirement. How much revenue do we need to generate to cover those expenses and look at future costs? They looked for cross subsidies that may exist between customer classes, which is exactly what we were just talking about with waste management. They have, as we talked about waste management, we're using commercial to subsidize residential, and now this whole big thing happened, and now residents are going to have to catch up. So we asked them to look into it and see if there was any cross subsidies, and to identify an appropriate monthly charge, customer charge, for each of the customer classes, and propose rate adjustments if needed to meet targeted revenue requirements. We did a good job. They were very pleased with what they were seeing, and we did make some recommendations, and we'll get to those in a minute. One thing that they did look at was, what was our minimum cash reserve? What did we need to cover our operating expenses, investments, capital improvements, and any debt that we might have? When I visited with Dan about these numbers, he said what we're looking at is that if everything was to shut down, we needed to have about 200 days of money in the natural gas company to continue to operate. So in order to do that, they ran through all these calculations using historical data, projections, looking at inflation and all kinds of things. So they're recommending about a 380, and then it will increase to 410 over the next about 4 years. They help us have what we need in there. That question? Oh, 5 years. You guys remember when we had the winter vortex? Remember, and those rates come in outrageous. One thing we could look at doing as we build these reserves is set aside some funding for if something like that happened again, we could help balance the cost to the customer, to the consumer. You know, we could just charge them the normal rate, and then let the company pick up the other, because it is actually their money. So those are the minimum cash reserves that he came up with over the 5 years. This is just another slide on the cash reserves. We want to be able to replace our assets when they're needed, and also have some financial stability now that it is under debt.
So if it's 30 years old, Terry, what are we looking at replacing?
We're trying to get our gas master plan kicked off to start doing more of that, but we haven't been looking at any like big capital replacements. I mean, we hope that the design life on our pipes 100 years, you know, and so we're not planning for big, you know, capital expenditures yet, but we'll start that process. And we've kind of avoided that a little bit with the revenue. You know, I mean, we were a long time in the red with the company, so we're just getting there. I mean, we're feeling pretty comfortable. We do all the cathodic protection on the pipelines, and so we feel like we're protected that way from corrosion.
Which side of the street is the line down at my street?
It should be on the south side. That's generally where they're at.
Well, it's installed, but I can't remember. 30 years ago.
I was 10 years old when you were putting
Yeah. As we talked about a rate track, which way we wanted to go, and they did their evaluation, as the statement says, our current gas rates are not sufficient to maintain the financial health through the projection period, which I requested they did 23 through 27 to look at things. These are some adjustments that they're recommending and numbers that they've used. The 140,000 is about what we have in depreciation each year, and that was the number that Terry and I come up with for capital projects and stuff each year. So rates versus the customer charge. There's always this conversation about customer charge. What is it? Why do we have it? Why do we need it? Why does it have to be this much? Why can't it be that much? So the rates and customer charge are a way to separate the distribution cost. Helps us identify what the costs are and what the charges should be to each customer class. And 6 monthly. It reduces and eliminates the cross-subsidizing between customer classes. And then we have to ask the question, are residential customers subsidizing commercial customers, or are commercial customers subsidizing residential? And I think we don't want either one after what we've seen happen with waste management. I think we want each customer class to cover their costs and not let one subsidize the other. One example, when we talk about costs, is that a residential meter is costing us about $170. That doesn't include the installation or any of the other little parts and screws and nuts that they have to have, but it's about $170. The cost to replace the wellness center meter is $5,000, and we've replaced it twice in the last 4 years.
Oh, 10.
10?
What causes it to fail?
Good question.
Rotary, it's a rotary meter, high volume, but it's more
Over
moving parts.
So just in the cost of the meter, you can see there's a big cost difference in probably not the best thing. When asked what the fixed cost covers, which is the customer charge, or we called it a base rate before, it covers the meter reading, customer service billing, a portion of the meter operation and maintenance, administrative expenses, and the contributions to the general fund. So the $8 base rate that we're paying right now is going in to cover all of these costs.
So every home that has that is getting charged $8.
Yeah, everyone who has it, the gas meter. The distribution rate is the rate that covers the cost. It covers a portion of the cost to operate and maintain, but it mostly covers the cost of the natural gas. So when you get your bill, you'll see the $8 customer charge, and then you see a cost for the usage, how much gas you're using. So there are two different things. So when they come up with their, flipping pages here, so I don't miss my notes, their proposed rate design. The one thing I need to make really clear before we get into this is it was not to increase the rates. It wasn't to increase revenues. It's to stabilize them and put the cost on the customer class that is using it, right? So we want to put the cost where it goes. It's just kind of restructuring where that revenue comes from. We need to look at natural gas, electric, sewer, water as businesses. And it's really hard because we are a government. And a lot of people look at us as using taxes. These are businesses and we want them to be healthy, and we want to make sure that we have the funds to continue to operate them. And that's really hard to explain to residents because they see us as tax people and those are my tax dollars. But what they don't realize is that each one of those residents is a member of this company. They own a portion of it, and you are the board of directors for that company. And so we have to make sure that what we're doing keeps the companies healthy. And that's one of the reasons why we went and had the study done was we need to make sure it's healthy so that we're providing good service to our shareholders or our company owners. Back before 2004, they were adjusting rates continuously to try to keep above, make sure they were collecting enough to run the company. Then in 2004, they did a resolution that gave the city manager the approval from council to adjust the rate monthly as the cost of gas went up or down. We're continuing to do that now. That's what we do. We get the bill, it gives us a cost, we run it through a calculation that tells us where the rate should be out there at, and then we make the adjustment there. It works really well. The only holdback is we're not getting where we need to be in the company. The base rate, as far as I could find, and maybe Brett will remember better than I do, but everything I could find was the $8 base rate was set in 1995. So it's very old. And I think when they set that, it was set just, let's pick a number and try it. And I think what they were trying to do with the margin on the gas was just to get a little bit above to help cover the cost without charging too much and keep that company moving. And it has done really well. We've met all of our obligations with our loans, but there's never been anything extra. As Terry said, it runs in the red. At the end of every fiscal year, we were taking what was left and moving it into the electric company to try to pay off that loan. Page. Okay, so this was their proposal to us for the residential. Right now, in May, the rate for a 0.25 PSI meter is about 74 cents a therm. They're proposing, this is where it's tricky, is that they suggest that in year one, we drop the rate to 0.44, okay, the margin adjustment, and increase the base rate to $10 on a residential. This will keep the revenue equal. It just shifts where the revenue is coming from. Does that make sense? Okay, and then in year two, we would go to 12, and year three, we would go to 14. And as we did this, the adjustment would drop down to keep it all neutral and even. What will happen is, as the cost of gas goes up, the customer will see a larger amount charged because the cost of gas went up, and we have to cover that cost. Does that make sense? Because if we're charging 74 cents and it comes back and gas is now 78, we've got to move it to cover that cost.
So the rate margin is what would be above the actual cost of the gas.
Yes, yes. And that's what they're wanting us to drop up from 50 down to 44, then 38, then 33.
But how does it generate any more revenue for?
Because it's coming through here.
$3 the customer on your.
But with the decreased rate margin, it actually stays exactly the same.
Yeah, because this goes up.
Because the base,
We're trying to keep this the same.
because the base rate is covering essentially is covering our overhead costs, and then the margin is covering the fluctuation in the gas rates. That's the idea.
It is very confusing, I know.
I guess I thought you had just mentioned that you felt like we needed to maybe bring in a little more revenue, so we're not in the red every year, and we can plan for.
This will help us do this. It will help us keep it steady. That's what was going on before we paid off
it was just going like this, and so
this will help stabilize all that.
Okay.
And bring it in and give us what we need. There would not be any overall increase to the resident because we're lowering one while we're bringing one up. When they will see a little bit more cost, they probably will mention this, is that in those months when it's 90 degrees outside, you're not running your gas furnace, but they still will have the base rate.
Right. And those who just have a meter, who already don't like the base rate that they're paying for, are gonna go up too.
Well, we have, to be honest, we didn't discuss those stuff in that conversation, and that will have to be something that we should probably bring up when the master study is done, how we want to handle those.
Cheryl, do you remember when Chris was going around signing people up for gas? Were you living back in Wyoming when they were signing people up?
Mhm.
What is your memory of that? What he was telling people?
That they would save money,
What about that fee?
yeah.
Because I remember when I let him dig up my yard and put that in, he says, this $8 will go away
Yeah,
when you get in the plans.
When you get connected.
when you get
Right.
connected, yeah.
But it doesn't go
That's
away
everything I
because
can find.
So, but it hasn't gone away.
Right.
So I know that that's what a lot of people are gonna have major heartburn with that.
Well, if we look into separate the stub fee,
Yeah.
first see what we want to do that, separate from this, because this isn't changing. But I think we do have a little bit of flexibility. I mean, it could change, but
Well, one thing you need to consider with that stub fee is that we are still obligated to maintain that line. And if we didn't continue to charge that, and then if, say, we get away with it, and then 10 years down the road, Eric decides he wants a meter, then if the cost to get that infrastructure back up and everything has now went up, and he's not been paying into the system for 10 years.
so we can have them look specifically
Yeah.
at that. I mean, I doubt that they've seen that hardly anywhere, or maybe they have, I don't know.
Right now, we have 77 stubs out there. I looked at that,
Okay,
so
so
I would know. This
This-
is on to the commercial, I'm sorry.
this $8 bill, you're saying that if I'm using gas, I don't get charged that?
Yes, you do.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. People were told that that was going away when they started using fuel. In 95, they were told, you sign up, get an appliance that uses gas, this $8 fee will go away. That's what Chris Webb was telling
And
people.
I understood that that meant that you would be paying $8 for something you didn't have. That was about the time I moved to.
Yeah,
Boston,
which I
so
mean-
wasn't there.
I think it's something worth looking into for our.
And we'll evaluate that when they do the natural gas master plan. Because right now, this was just focused on the rate for
Right.
customers.
So this is the commercial side of it, and we did find that the commercial customers were subsidizing the residential. It seems to be just a thing for whatever reason. With voice management, we saw it in electric, you've seen it in water, for whatever reason, now in natural gas. So right now for a 5 PSI, the charge is $1.03, a little over $1 for burn, and it would go down to 81 cents during that first year, and then the customer charge would go up. And that customer charge is based on the PSI for those commercial meters because they are extremely expensive. Just as an example, $5,000 for the meter at the wellness center. And because they are our meters, we are paying for them, plus the time and all the extra equipment, everything to go into that. Questions? Yay! I know that it's, when I looked at putting this together and bringing it, I was like, oh man. It just seems like everything is going up and changing and out of control, and I understand that. I also understand that, you know, we have to run a profitable business for those residents and be able to provide them the services, not just gas, but water and electric. You gotta have sewer, you gotta have trash, and it all costs money, but it seems like this is really heavy and it's a change. I like that as one goes up, the other one comes down. I think that's easier to see until summertime, when you got that base rate and you're not using anything, then they're gonna see that a little more, but I just wanted to present this rate study to you. I'd like to come back with a resolution to approve the rate study and move forward with it. I can make a couple of suggestions if you want, options. some people may not like them.
Yeah, but this almost encourages use. Right? I mean, like we're opposite of water, where our rates, where,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't use it, you're gonna pay $31 as a commercial business in year two, even if you don't use it. So it encourages use, because if you do use it, then your rate, then you're actually gonna not see much of a change, because you're, which is in a business, that's the right thing to do. It puts us in a hard spot, because we're between a business and our residents. Yeah, I mean, because as a business, you want them to use the system, that's what it's there for, you want people to cook food and use it, but
And
to
we
pay
want,
$31 a month,
and we want when they
or
come and say,
$12 a month to not even use it, no.
when a road center says, I need a $5,000 meter, we want to make sure they can pay an amount to the system to replace it.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this would be to stabilize the revenues over the course of a year, right? By increasing that base rate, that would provide a more stable revenue,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
in the summer months when the gas rates, when the
Right.
gas usage isn't that high.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're just looking
Any
for,
just general guidance to keep moving on, I guess? I mean, there's no real.
just advice and consent,
to keep
if
moving
you want
on.
him to bring it back to you with a resolution to move forward with implementing
Do
the
it.
rates.
Keep looking at it. I'm sure if people are watching, please call us, talk to us.
Yeah, I hope.
We're there.
I agree.
Yeah, I would really, I would put like out there feedback on your feelings on it, because I am looking at it from a financial standpoint. And you will get the feedback from the residents, and any suggestions you have or ideas, I'm always happy.
Is there a time on this? Do we need to have this done by?
We're probably gonna want to implement those new rates, probably in July is a good time to start that, but if we have to go a little longer, we can do that.
July is a low use
It is.
month for gas.
Okay,
That's
I
not
think
good, because then they're gonna really recognize that base rate, but, is there any commercial customers that don't use, we would always use water heaters that are gas. Is there any commercial customers that are not using gas, they're gonna feel that hit of that $31 and $43 base rate? In 2 years, you know?
Well, it depends on the meters too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, what are most commercial meters? Are they, what size are they?
Oh, they vary across the board. I mean, the high school has a 5 PSI connection. You know, they're using a ton of gas at the high school. That's our biggest customer. On down to, there's commercial customers who have the same usage as a resident, or possibly smaller, you know, one water heater with a sink. I think people are washing their hands in, you know, and that's all the gas they have.
So that like the school district is gonna go from $8 to $103 as a base rate. But then the monthly rates are gonna go down to adjust for that difference.
Yeah. One thing that you can, like I said, this is just kind of one way you could look at it, is that in the summertime, this is how I look at my own budget. In the summertime, my gas usage goes down and my water goes up. In the wintertime, it flip flops.
Yes, my bill doesn't change a whole lot.
Yeah.
It goes down a little bit in the spring and fall,
So I'm hoping that's what people will see, you know, as I look through those, I can tell you when things shift just by going through the billing each month, and I look through there and then I run it, I sort it by high to low, and all of a sudden it's all the water up, and I go, oh, May, all the water, everybody's turned water on. Then about October, November, all the natural gas comes up because everybody's turned on their heaters. So there, I can see that shift in the billing. It's kind of interesting for kind of people, but
So we're looking for, I guess, just advice and consent to move forward with the rate study to draft the resolution.
yes, please.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor, we do have need to go into closed session for real estate and reasonably imminent litigation.
Yeah, we have several items. I think the last one I counted was there's 5 different things to go into closed session for.
They should be pretty brief.
litigation property.
Should things start now or early?
Yeah, what I was thinking.
I actually like this.
It's hard for me to get there.
So if we would like to go into that closed session, I would take a motion to go into closed session. Do we have to? No? It takes a 2/3 vote to get into closed session.
That's true.
I move we go to closed session.
Okay, Councilmember Grover, Councilmember Wilson, all in favor?
Right?
That is everyone.
Would you like to take
I think.
break?
So let's start in like 8:50.
Okay, Joel, we will log into the closed session link that you were sent earlier.
Congratulations, I will get you a email set